My name is Moray McLaren. Thank you very much for inviting me to address the Mexican Law Summit today. I know from the participant list that I have so many friends and companions in the audience. It's just only a pity that I can't be with you this year to speak to you and give you this presentation in person. Juan Carlos has asked me if I can take just 5 minutes to think about what are the similarities and challenges that I'm seeing for law firms around the world. And my starting point is to say very, very clearly that wherever I travel around the world, I'm seeing 5 basic challenges for independent law firms. Those challenges that I'm going to outline for you now. The first common theme to highlight that I see around the world is the way standardization is driving down prices within legal services. Clients understand better than ever the value curve that I have on my slide. Of course, there is that rocket science work still available that isn't price sensitive, but our research shows that that amount of work is becoming less increasingly. Some law firms are making a play for the standard work, which can be very profitable if there's a high volume of it and you use paralegals and technology. And my biggest fear is around the firms I work with, where a lot of their work is what I would call relationship work, the role of the lawyer as a trusted advisor of the business. That work is increasingly under threat. The second thing that I see, which is a result of the first, of course, is that law firms are becoming much more clear about the type of market they want to be in. Do they have the reputation for the brains work, or are they making a play for the standard work? As long as they have the right business model, all of that work can be profitable. And we're seeing increasingly law firms opting for quite different leverage models and quite different ways of approaching their legal services. Thirdly, it would be no surprise that the clients are increasingly aware of these changes in what we're seeing in our research as the polarisation of legal services between those that are viewed as being elite and those that are not, and a segmentation of legal services into Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. For those law firms that have the reputation and clarity about what they're trying to achieve, there still is room for the elite law firm. I'm very confident of that, but there will be definitely less going forward. My main concern is for those firms in the middle of this slide, which could see themselves, and unfortunately often describe themselves as being mid-size, mid-market, and some of them even say full service. I'm particularly concerned about the future of those law firms and their business viability going forward. The fourth trend that I see is the increasing costs of delivery of legal services. The cost of hiring people, the cost of the systems and process and professional staff to manage that. In particular, technology is an increasing cost. So while we see many small firms, there's still many boutique 2 or 3 partner firms that can be hugely profitable. Law firms need growth in order to offer their junior lawyers a future, and unfortunately, as law firms grow, they slide into that space that I would call the Bermuda Triangle, where their profitability can either stagnate or indeed fall. The question for law firms then is, what is the right shape and size they need to be in order to gain some of the economies of scale from their increasing cost of delivery? This is driving consolidation in legal services, law firms emerging in order to increase their size, and I think that will only increase going forward. And 5, last but not least, for the clients I work with, this is all taking place against the background of what we could call the founder's trap. The challenge of a strong, dynamic, successful leader who has had clarity and direction in his own firm, and the challenge of bringing in the second generation leadership. And what does that mean in terms of their aspirations as a founder for the firm? Do they want it to survive after them or not? And how are they going to transition? And this, of course, does take time into the second generation leadership. Do their young lawyers, in fact, want to be partners in the firm? And what is the deal that they're going to offer them? And before I finish, let me just share some data with you. We're updating our information at the moment on the Spanish legal market. It's interesting to look back at 2008 just before the financial crisis here and what was 4 or 5 years of recession within legal services. Of course, you see to the top left your domestic firms that have gone for size as a strategic approach, and on the bottom right you see the group of, at that stage, what was a small group of international firms that are highly focused on profitability, being small and beautiful. And in the middle you see those firms, as I was suggesting before, that are mid-size, mid-market, that are neither big enough, the right shape and size they need to be, or small enough in order to focus only on the highest value work. If we fast forward to today, we see a hugely different market. We can see on the bottom right there's a much wider group of firms, the majority being international, that have a high profit focus. Those three major Spanish firms, they've managed to become smaller throughout the financial crisis, although they're now getting bigger again, and they've definitely worked hard on increasing their profitability. In the first part of the financial crisis, they focused on cutting costs. That's a one hit that they won't be able to repeat, and since then they've been focusing very, very carefully on the type of work they want to do. If you look at the bottom left, you see that mid-market, and the big difference on the slide, as you'll see, is the growth of the Big Four. The Big Four accountancy practices are being very successful here within legal services. Not only is their shape and size giving them economies of scale, but their focus and clarity on strategy means they're becoming increasingly profitable. The first thing I would advise firms to do is, now more than ever, have clarity about what they're trying to achieve. When I start a strategy project, I always interview partners independently and confidentially and ask, what is it that they're seeking in terms of the type of work they want to do for the clients and the sectors, and what does that mean in terms of money? With clarity over the individual objectives of partners, you can then bring everyone together to work out what does that mean in terms of the firm and in terms of sharing a common direction. If any of you are interested in hearing more about these issues, I would urge you to look at the webinar recently released by the IBA Law Firm Management Committee. When we talk about remuneration in law firms, the question we pose is, to what extent do law firms get the behaviours they want or the behaviours that they pay for? You will find details on the IBA website, or please send me an email if you'd like me to send you the link. It's been a pleasure having these few minutes to share with you and sending you my postcards from Madrid. Please do come and see me if you're in this part of the world, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very, very much.